Welcome to B2B Tech Talk, Ingram Micro's destination for information on technology, business, and the people that make them run. This episode is sponsored by Xvantage, Ingram Micro's game changing platform designed to help your business run better and grow faster. Today, we've invited Forrest Smith, Ingram Micro's SVP and CISO, to talk to us about trends in cybersecurity and what Ingram's InfoSec team is launching in October to create more awareness around the security risk today. So glad that you're here. I have lots I want to talk to you about being our Ingram Micro's Chief Information Security Officer. I'm sure you deal with a lot of things every day. But first, I want to talk about you've been with Ingram now 4 years. What was the transition like? You were in the automotive industry before and you moved over to distribution. That's kind of a big shift.
It sounds like a big shift, but what was kind of interesting about it, if you think about the manufacturing of cars and the logistics around the
Mhm.
manufacturing of cars and getting, that a car company is really just an assembler of a whole bunch of different parts. It wasn't too far off from logistics in Ingram Micro, and that's why I think it made for a good fit.
Yeah.
I was able to bring some of that experience around, business experience around logistics, and apply that here at Ingram.
Fantastic. Speaking of bringing things over, bringing experience over, you also brought over a few of your former colleagues.
A couple of my colleagues did decide to join us here at Ingram Micro as part of that transition. I'm glad that they're here. But we also built out, a relatively large worldwide team.
Yes.
Since I joined 4 years ago, we've grown our team. We've over doubled it.
Wow.
And we did a lot of that growth around the world, not
Yeah.
just in the United States. And so we did a lot of interesting things to find talent in
Mhm.
India and Costa
Yeah.
Rica and Australia and Romania, Spain, Canada, so the Philippines. So we're literally all over the world as part of a very global Ingram
Yeah.
Micro.
Yeah. Much needed. And that's fantastic. I love hearing it. I feel safer already. A lot of those folks that have joined the team are former law enforcement, former Secret Service agents. It's fascinating to learn about them. And I had no idea that, see, I always thought Secret Service people were there to protect the president or protect dignitaries. Didn't realize that they also were responsible for other things.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a lot of diversity in our
Yeah.
team. So we have folks that come to us with incredible technical backgrounds. We have folks that come to us with a variety of business backgrounds, and then of course we've got individuals that come from a variety of law enforcement backgrounds. And to your point, what's kind of interesting is the one individual you mentioned from Secret Service did digital forensics at Secret
Yeah.
Service, and that was his introduction into cybersecurity, and it made for a good transition into the private
Mhm.
sector when he decided to join us. He helped, at a previous company, he did investigations and
Mhm.
digital forensics, and now at Ingram Micro, he's the director of our Information Security Operations Center,
Wow.
and everything related to incident response. And that team does an amazing job. We've insourced most of our incident
Mhm.
response. We do almost all of our incident response in house. Because we're a
That's
large enough
incredible.
company
Yeah.
that we have enough things that happen,
Yep.
that we can staff a full team. And so they do a great job responding to threats every single day.
Yep. Oh my goodness. That again, it's awesome. It gives me great comfort to know that we're protecting Ingram Micro, but not just Ingram Micro. And I think that's where people don't really understand. You're protecting our whole ecosystem, our partner community, our vendor community. And that's really important to point out.
We do. We do a lot of work in the entire supply chain. So, as an example, we've done a lot of work on the cloud side, in our cloud business unit, and the reselling of AWS and Azure and GCP, and some of the challenges that arise in that space with cryptocurrency mining. And we've got resellers who have customers who have fallen victim. And we do a lot of work internally to monitor those systems, alert the resellers, make sure we shut down those types of activities so that it doesn't, create bills of upwards of $100,000
Yes. My
for a
goodness.
single customer.
Yes. Wow. 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 What how do you balance your time in between defending and being proactive, right? Because you're constantly having to be vigilant for what's out there and what's coming ahead. How do you do that?
So my favorite saying is it's not if it's when. Incidents and issues are going to happen in cybersecurity. There's no way to get to zero risk, and so we do a little bit of a balance between proactive and reactive. And that was one of the things that I really focused on when I joined Ingram Micro. When I joined, we had a team of individuals that did the reactive activities, but it wasn't very large,
Mhm.
and we outsourced a lot of it. And so we've really taken the time to build out that team so that we can be extraordinarily effective at responding to
Yeah.
incidents. Um, One of the key pieces of responding to incidents is speed, right? You have to do it quickly. That's super evident as of late when we've seen certain, hotels in Las Vegas significantly affected by ransomware. We saw Colonial Pipeline
Yes.
significantly affected by ransomware, and really, the key here is speed.
Yeah.
You have to discover it. And when you discover it, you have to be able to respond to it very, very quickly, to contain it, to stop it from moving and spreading, for your cyber program to be effective, because you can't rely solely on protective technologies. We do a lot there.
Yeah.
We use a lot of technology. I look around here at the different booths, and we use a lot of these products that you see out here on the floor. Um, but you have to do both.
Yes, absolutely. How how big a factor or a risk factor is the human factor in cybersecurity?
The biggest factor. It is by far the biggest factor. Worldwide, if you look across all the incidents and data breaches and everything that's happened, about 85 to 90% of those incidents originate from human error, whether that be someone clicking on a link or opening an attachment in an email, a human in IT misconfiguring a system that allows for access. One way or another, it comes down to human error. And so, one of the things in the last 4 years that we've really ramped up is our communication inside of Ingram Micro. We send out newsletters. We do, and our associates, to their chagrin, right, our monthly phishing tests where we send out the fake emails and we provide on the spot education if someone were to click on those. We do quarterly information security training, not annually. We break it up and we do it quarterly to keep it top of mind. And so we've really worked hard, because I think, when I talk to other CISOs, the one thing that I say is that is the cheapest investment you can make from a cost perspective in InfoSec. If you look at the cost of tools and the cost of
Right.
incident response and all of those things, training people is the least expensive cost
Mhm.
and the greatest return on your investment.
Yeah.
If you can get people to have cybersecurity top of mind, they don't make those mistakes.
I think it's also, and you've probably seen this, that training also transfers to their use of technology at home as well, right? Because being more mindful, and we're all connected, let's face it, our devices at home are connected to our devices at
Mhm.
work. So I think it's really valuable to be able to pass through that training. You have been working very hard, speaking of training, on putting together, and this is the first I've seen at Ingram's, and I've been here almost 10 years, um, putting together a series of trainings that we're going to make available on Xvantage and other places to bring this awareness broadly to the community.
Mhm.
Why'd you do this?
So, one of our goals inside of our team is to become best in class, and we've been on an interesting 4 year journey to get there. And I think it's time for us to share the experiences and the knowledge and the what it's taken to create and develop and execute this transformative plan. And so we were thinking about what we were going to do this year for October
Mhm.
Security Awareness Month, and we decided to showcase some of the talent that we have inside of our team and the
Mhm.
things that they've been doing. And then we started to think maybe it's a good idea to expose some of that externally. We do a lot inside of the company. Why not share it with our vendors and our partners and the world, on some of the things that we've learned and some of the advice that we can give to small to medium sized businesses
Yeah.
that could leverage that advice and make themselves safer.
Well, it also really showcases, as you said, thought leadership, the thought
Hmm.
leadership that you've put together, the team that you've put together that has great stories to tell. And I think
Yes.
that they they are so proud of the work that they do in being able to share that. So well done. I'm really looking forward to that series coming out in the upcoming weeks. When you were starting out your career, the is this where you thought you were going?
Not at all. Not at all. Um, no, I started my career with a very large consulting company,
Hmm.
and then was working with the automotive company that I previously worked for, and eventually they insourced me. And I was in enterprise architecture and regular IT. I was
Okay.
coding, I was developing things, um, and as luck would have it, I got into infrastructure
Hmm.
operations, and that was one of the areas that I kind of struggled with.
Hmm.
I found it kind of hard to be passionate
Hmm.
about it. And so the CIO at the time at this automotive company said, "Well, the only other thing I have is cybersecurity, and we don't really have a team.
Okay.
Would you like to build it?" And I thought, "Oh, that sounds kind of
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah, it's not infrastructure, so I'll take it. I don't really know much
Yeah.
about it." And so I went and got my digital forensic certification
Hmm.
because this was right after Sarbanes Oxley
Hmm.
came
Hmm.
out, and we were doing a lot of investigations that came from hotline
Hmm.
calls.
Yeah.
um, and so really kind of jumped headfirst into it, and decided that this was something I really really enjoyed. um, and then you mentioned the Secret Service agent that came to work for us. As part of that, at that automotive company, we created a private partnership with the
Hmm.
local sheriff's department.
Mm.
And I was actually trained to be a detective and a certified deputized detective part time. And we did that philanthropically through the automotive company. And
Very
so we
cool.
did a lot of high tech cyber investigations
Yeah.
for the local community where they might not have had the
Yeah.
resources to do it themselves. Um, and they definitely benefited from it, and we benefited. I personally benefited from it, from learning some new skills in the public sector. um, and so I didn't expect to be in cybersecurity at all. I never expected to be a police officer. I never those were things that were not in my path. I was an IT geek from the beginning, through and through. But what's interesting about it is, you take, the path that life gives you,
Yes.
and it's ended here, and I love it. I absolutely love cybersecurity. It's a great area for me to be in, and I'm super passionate about it, and have a great team that surrounds me and surrounds Ingram, so that we can do it really, really well.
Well, hands down, you're doing a fabulous job, and your team, I know because I've spoken with several of them over the past few weeks, are very, very passionate about what they do. And that comes from leadership. If you rally around a cause and a purpose, um, you're a good leader because you're getting them to follow your lead and your guidance to to an outcome that you hope to achieve. So well done.
Thank you. We love it.
Good, 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 good. So I want to just take a few more minutes of your time, the threat landscape. Where do you see the biggest threats, like say the next 6 months to a year?
In the next 6 months to a year, I think we will continue to see
Hmm.
ransomware as the largest threat to companies, to the economy, to cybersecurity in general. What's super interesting about ransomware is the monetization of hacking, right? And to a large extent, every company is fighting against, the very organized criminal groups that produce the ransomware, execute it, and we all struggle because we're teeny pieces in what is a very large criminal operation. And I think that will by far be the largest threat. But there are others. There's still data breaches. There's still, to a much smaller extent, state-sponsored activities. And I think really what we have to get to is just being vigilant.
Yeah.
Ingram is part of quite a few organizations that share information
Hmm.
across companies so that we can be smarter,
Right.
better protected.
Hmm.
And I think that that's probably going to be the key going into the future, is how do we collaborate across companies so that we get that force multiplier that can combat this very, very large threat. Because what I think we've learned, and what is completely obvious, is we can't do it alone.
Right. 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 Yep. In talking with a lot of our partners, many of them give their time and their talents to help solve cybercrime
Mhm.
for nothing. And when I ask them, why do you do this? Because this is your core business, they say in certain cases it absolutely makes sense to turn over our expertise to help our community, because we're not just helping the business, we're helping everyone that that business touches. And that's just heartwarming to me that we have such, great partners and a partner community that believes so strongly in working in their communities to help solve cybercrime.
And I think it's going to be the partners that really do help solve it,
Right.
to be honest. If you look at the world economy, over 90% of the economy is run in small to medium sized
Yeah.
businesses. And it's our partners who have the greatest reach into those small to medium sized businesses. And unfortunately, the consequences for an SMB
Mhm.
and a cyber attack is generally bankruptcy.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that is extraordinarily sad, and there are
Yeah.
things that we can do to help solve that. And so we love the position that we're in at Ingram Micro, that we can help partners, we can enable them to provide small to medium sized businesses with the tools that they need to be cyber safe.
That's fantastic. I have to thank you so much for all that you're doing at Ingram Micro, but also what you're doing to help educate and make folks in our communities very much aware of the threat landscape and the things that people can do to protect themselves. Forrest, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
You bet. Thanks for tuning in. If you like this episode and you want to continue the conversation online, use hashtag B2B Tech Talk.